Today I'm going to show you how to install a zero clearance insert for a Ridgid R4512 table saw. I chose the Leecraft RG5 as it's designed to work with the Ridgid R4512. The reason I'm installing this insert is mainly for safety. When you're cutting a small piece and as you're pushing the piece through, it may fall into the gap between the blade and the fence. Since there's nothing for it to rest on, it can drop straight into the saw. Here's an example of how it can go wrong very quickly. The first thing you need to do is unplug the power to the saw. Next, make sure the saw is off by turning the switch to the on position, and make sure it's off and there's no blade movement. And be sure to turn it off again or else it'll start as soon as you plug it back in. If you have a riving knife installed, be sure to remove it before you start the next step. You'll reinstall it at the end of the process. Next, lower the blade all the way down and make sure it's not sticking up at all. The next thing you want to check are the leveling screws. There are 6 leveling screws that you may need to adjust once you put the insert in. When you place the new zero clearance into the slot, see if it sits flush. It may not be completely level and may rock back and forth. At this point, it's a good idea to make sure the insert is flush with the top of the table saw. I used a combination square to see if it was uneven in any area. It's critical that you get this level with the surface of the table so your material doesn't get stuck in a ridge while being pushed through the blade. If the insert is not flush, adjust the leveling screws through the plate. This allows you to test the plate as you make micro adjustments. I tested level again by dragging my fingernail over the insert plate onto the table saw surface to see if there are any noticeable height differences between the two surfaces. Once you've made all your adjustments and the surface is flush, you're ready to cut the slot into the insert. A noticeable difference between the two inserts is the Leecraft doesn't have a hook at the top that secures it to the table surface like the original insert does from Ridgid. Another difference is there's no metal at the back of the insert to stick it to the magnet embedded below the ridge of the insert slot on the Ridgid. There is a countersunk hole in the plate if you want to install a washer or piece of metal to secure it to the magnet. I think it would have been nice for Leecraft to include this in the package in case you wanted to use this feature. Next, I'm going to move the fence over the plate and keep it about a ½ inch away from the blade to ensure clearance and make sure it doesn't hit the fence. Leecraft suggests that you clamp a board over the insert and raise the blade up. I didn't do that, and it made the insert bow a bit. I ended up using a small scrap to hold the plate down as I raised the blade. I have to admit it would have been much easier and safer to clamp the board down though. Next, I got some 1500 grit sandpaper to knock down any burrs left on the slot. At this point, I reinstalled the riving knife back onto the saw to test clearance and fit with the new insert. Next, I lowered the blade back down so I could test the insert. As you raise the blade back up, the blade shouldn't move or drag against the insert, and the riving knife should raise up without touching the insert. Now, with the zero clearance installed, notice how there's no gap between the fence and the blade anymore. Next, I ran the same test using the new insert. I used my micro jig Pushblock. You can see when I used this before, the blade hit the micro jig and the piece dangerously fell into the cabinet of the saw. The micro jig allows me to more safely cut small pieces without the risk of a push stick kicking back on me. Since the micro jig is very thin, I'm I'm testing a very small gap to show you how much safer this type of cut can be with this combination. Now you can see I was able to cut a much smaller piece, it was safe, and nothing fell into the saw. More importantly, I have all my fingers, which is the first rule in working with the table saw. I definitely suggest getting a microjig if you cut small pieces like this on a table saw. I don't use it that often, but when I do, it's a nice tool to have to make cuts much safer. I'll put an affiliate link in the description below, and if you click on the link, it'll help me out. Thanks. If you want to see some outtakes from shooting this video, be sure to watch till the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this in the future. I'll see you in the next one. Okay.